Again, we're in the middle in this particular chapter of the Niddah of Nikios. The Ramchal is focusing on the different behaviors that it is difficult to cleanse one's self of, or more specifically, the averos that almost everyone ends up transgressing, says the Ramchal, at different times in different ways, often because the expansive nature of the sin is such that I might not even realize that what it is that I'm doing is wrong. So we're focusing over here in the area of arayos, in the area of immorality. So we've been focusing on the idea that although we all know that when it comes to arayos, obviously the illicit sexual encounter will be usher, but there are so many other pieces of arayos, says Ramchal, that we have to be sensitive to. Otherwise, we end up transgressing, and when we transgress, even if the transgression at the end of the day is not of a biblical nature, and even if it's not a chiv kares, a chiv misa, but to transgress in any way paves the way for more enhanced negative behavior down the road. And unless, of course, a person does something to actively stem the tide of negativity early on, we find ourselves in places in life that at the end of the day, we know we should not be. So he says over here as follows, so he focuses over here about even when it comes to speaking to a woman. He says, so it's a very dramatic statement. The person who goes ahead and speaks too much with a woman causes negativity for himself. And I will say, now, what does that mean? So, truth is, one doesn't have to be a rocket scientist for this kind of stuff. But again, on a very basic level, be careful. Thank you. Right, good, smart. By the way, right? Be careful with interactions, even with social interactions, even with professional interactions. A person always has to be vigilant. I will say, so much of what Ramchal is writing over here is far left. You're looking for the Gemara's Menachem? Far left, I think. Are there none left? None left. So this is all predicated on a concept in Chazal of ein apotropos li'arayis. Ein apotropos li'arayis means that at the end of the day, there is no guardian, right, for immorality. In other words, that a person has to recognize that although they may think that they are safeguarded from some type of immoral trespass, it's not true. It's not true. All of us are subject to temptation, and therefore, because we're all subject to temptation, all of us ultimately, again, are subject to these lapses in different ways. So because of that, a person must be ever vigilant, even in terms of how I talk with someone else who's not my wife. All of this requires us to be exceptionally vigilant. He goes on, b'shmiya, when it comes ultimately again to hearing, kol b'isha erva. Well, there's the concept of kalisha, right? The concept of kalisha is it's not a minhag, right? It's a halacha, and a person has to be vigilant with that as well, because even just aside from what we see, what we hear impacts us as well. Od be'inyan znus, hapev ha'ozen. I will say here he comes to another very important topic. Furthermore, when it comes to matters of immorality, right, by mouth, or ultimately through what we hear, explains the Ramchal, Dahainu hadibor b'divrei znus. But say this is something that also we have to be so vigilant with, and especially again, sometimes people, even in well-meaning ways, just be a little bit humorous, say things that are inappropriate. And even saying things that are inappropriate is also a form of znos, is also a form of arayas. So he goes on, he says as follows, O ashmir ledvar ma'ila, speaking about matters of immorality, listening to matters of immorality, kvar tzavchu b'kruchya v'amru, v'lo yireh b'cha ervas davar, ervas dibur, zen nibul peh. So explains Ramchal so profoundly. And this is an incredible drasha, right? The drasha la yireh b'cha ervas davar, right? A matter of erva should not be seen with you. So the Gemara darshans as ervas dibur. Ervas dibur. So we'll say, what's ervas dibur? Meaning illicit talk. Even talking about things that are immoral, even talking about things that are of a highly sexualized nature. So we have to be, you'll say, it's just speech. I'm not committing arayas, right? I'm not engaging in an act of morality. again, you see that Chazal wants us to be careful with our dibur, even when it comes to arayos as well. He goes on, he says, Va'amru od. I'm just skipping 2 lines. He goes on, Amru od, Hakol yodim kala lama nichneses l'chuppah. Everyone knows what the chassan and kala are going to be doing after the wedding is over. Everyone is aware of that. Ela kol habanam bel pi va'omro. But whoever is so crass and actually speaks about it, afilu gzardin shel shivim shana latova hofchin lo l'ra. Even if for the last 70 years you were an absolute tzaddik and you had a gzardin latova, so one act of nivo peh like that overturns an entire gzardin latova. Now, both say again, could it be that this is a bit hyperbolic? Sure, we saw about hyperbole again, right, in Tamid and Me'ilah before. But my point just is that what Chazal is saying is, come on, a Jew doesn't talk that way. A Jew doesn't talk that way. There's a way of saying, and this is true also because especially, sometimes people, it's funny. You have to be so vigilant about what you forward, right? It's so easy to forward something or to share something or to this or to that. I will say we have to really think about it because a lot of times we are the recipients of things that either have off-color humor or have innuendo. And the truth is, Chazal, the Ramchal is saying, that is a chilek, ultimately, again, of arayas. No, if anybody were to ask me, did you transgress any arayas today? So I would say, no, Baruch Hashem, it's been a good day, right? No arayas today. But yeah, I will say, what do you see from the Ramchal? You see that you say something inappropriate, right? You say something inappropriate, right? You say something with innuendo. You say something a bit, crass. That's arayas. Okay, I got it. It's not an isur daraisa. It's not an isur kares. It's not an isur misa. That's fine, but we don't define success as Baruch Hashem. Today, I wasn't chayiv misa. It's certainly a great start. It's an incredible start to the day. But lamaisa, that can't be the metric of my success. Otherwise, again, I'm really underperforming. He goes on, va'amru od, hafilu sicha kala sheben ish le'ishto, magidim lo la'adam b'shas adin. He quotes over here an incredible Gemara, an overwhelming Gemara, that after 120, even the intimate conversations that a person has with his wife are retold before him at the Beis Din Shel Mala, which tells me that even in the context of a permitted relationship, right, even in the context of a sacred relationship, so how I talk and what I say ultimately matters as well. Ube'inyan shashmiya hara hazos gamkin amru, top of Kof Zayin. And I will say when it comes to listening or to hearing things that are inappropriate, Chazal already said, top of Kof Zayin, af hashomea v'shosek, shene'emar zu'um Hashem yipol sham, hari lecha, shekala chushim tzrichim lihios nekim min haznus ume'inyano. So I will say a very profound statement that you see that Ramchal says, what do you see from here? See, I will say, up until you see this section on Nikios, we often assume that when it comes to anything regarding znus or arayos, is talking about physical behaviors, right? Again, it's the prohibition of engaging in anything illicit, which is true. But says Ramchal, you see that in order to be a naki, remember again, this chapter is nikios. So I could be sin-free, but not naki. The goal of nikios is to try to purge myself of the vestiges of sin. No one's ever going to be totally naki. That's important to understand. But lemaisa, I can at least sensitize myself to it. So when it comes to the arayos, when it comes to immorality, we see that it's not just about abstaining from illicit relationships, but it's a certain purity of the senses as well. It's making sure that what I'm looking at, shmiras ha'inayim, is okay. It's making sure that what I'm listening to is pure, and it's making sure that what I'm talking about is appropriate as well. And of course, if I guard the senses, then hopefully, again, one will be able to guard themselves from engaging in negative activity as well. And so we'll stop over here. Meretz Hashem will pick up on Monday. Morning, Dr. Allman. Thank you for the use of your Gemara. It was exceptionally helpful for me. That's incredible. Yeah.
Virtual reality.
Virtual, I'm sure.
That's what I told Sue. מספיק עם בית המקדש הווירטואלי. והגיע הזמן לריאלי.
Amen. Amen. All right, Shabbos, say good morning. Good morning. Let's begin. We have a very special sponsorship this morning for the daf in honor of new beginnings, the honor of beginning of Maseches Niddah, beginning Parshas Bereshis, and Baruch Hashem, the Sun and Shine family, Rabbi and Mrs. Sun and Shine, are thrilled to announce the birth of their first grandchild. Right, a grandson born last night to Noam and Rebecca. Mazel Tov. Shibizoch lachniso beviso sha'avim avinu bizmano, and the gadol the Torah lechuppah lemasim tovim. Mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov. I will say, of course, to our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Tishrei, to Jacob and Julie Blumenfeld for dedicating all of the shiurim and drashos this month in memory and the Ilui Nishmas of their grandmothers. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, the Neshamas will have an aliyah and the families a nechama. And I both say, let's begin. Maseches Niddah. So first of all, Baruch Hashem, it's wonderful to see a few new faces. Make sure if you are a standing member of the shir that you welcome the new guys. No hazing or anything like that. It's the last Masechta. We'll take it easy on them. Meretz Hashem, really. A welcome to those who are new, a welcome to those who are returning. Baruch Hashem, the beauty of a brand new Masechta is an opportunity. It's like a hischatshus, right? We'll talk about that a little bit later. But hischatshus, a renewal, a new beginning. And the Meretz Hashem, it's very exciting to think that this is our last Masechta in this current cycle of the daf. That the next siyum we make in Meretz Hashem, well, hopefully we'll make a siyum on the Masechtos that we still have to catch up on. But in Meretz Hashem, the next Masechta will finish. Will in Meretz Hashem signal our siyum on Shas Bavli. Incredible. So I'll say with that, let's begin. An incredible Masechta ahead of us today. So Daf Beis Amud Aleph, Shammai Omer. So we'll say, the context, of course, over here is the halachos of Niddah. Then we'll say just one word of Hakdama, although we're going to see this a lot in the Gemara as well in the next little while. Biblically speaking, there are two different concepts of Niddah and Zava. Those concepts are different ideas on a most basic level. The distinction between a Niddah and a Zava sometimes is in the type of emission that a woman has, and sometimes it's all just a matter of timing. Niddah, of course, is menstrual blood. Zava is categorized as some other type of emission. So what we're going to see is that sometimes the fundamental distinction between the two is just simply when the bleeding occurs. So today, I want to point out something else that's very important. Middah Oraisa, Hilchos Niddah, extends for 7 days, which means a woman becomes a Niddah, she gets her period, however long she bleeds for. At the end of 7 days, she goes to the mikvah. There's no Shiva Nekiyim, there's nothing like that. It's a 7-day period. Today, the construct of Niddah that we have of what we call 5 days of active bleeding and Shiva Nekiyim, 7 clean days, is a merger of the concepts of Zava and Niddah. The concept of Shiva Nekiyim, 7 clean days, does not come up anywhere by Hilchos Niddah. That comes up by Hilchos Zivus. So again, I'm just mentioning this to you. We're gonna do all of these sugyas, but just by way of Hakdama, it's important to understand that. But we'll say, furthermore, when we think about Hilchos Niddah, for us, the ramifications ultimately is in the realm of marital intimacy. The truth is, when the Gemara tackles Hilchos Niddah, there are other ramifications of taras. For example, again, if a woman who is a Niddah touches trumas or maisrus, ultimately, again, that's problematic. So that's where our Mishnah picks up over here. So Shammai Omer, Shammai says, Kol anoshim dayan shaitan. All women are both say dayan shaitan literally means die, it's enough to establish them as a Niddah at that time. What does that mean? Take a look at the top Rashi. Shammai Omer Kol Anoshim Dayan Shaitan, says Rashi. Imra Saddam, if a woman sees blood, Dai Lanu. And we'll say there's one other piece, which is technically speaking, a woman becomes a Niddah at the moment that the blood leaves the makar. The makar is the uterus, right? So remember again, so the blood exits from the uterus through the cervix into the vaginal canal outside of the body. So ultimately a woman becomes a Niddah as soon as blood leaves the uterus, which is exceptionally important because halacha l'maisa, even before blood actually exits the body, a woman is already technically a Niddah. So that's where a lot of this information, or that's where a lot of this machlok is going to come up. So look at Rashi. Imra Saddam, if a woman sees blood, Dailanu im tetamit shumas utaris shetiga bahen mishas ri'iyah ve'elach. So Beishamai says like this. So what's the $1 million question? A woman sees blood. A woman sees blood. What happens? Rabbi say, when do we assume? From what point in time is she a niddah? Right? Meaning we know. Essentially, what we're asking is, do we assume that blood must have been present for some period of time before, or do we assume that she's only a niddah from the time that she first discovers the blood? So Beis Shammai says, Kol Hanashim Dayan Shaitan is actually a kula of Shammai. Right? Shammai says all women are established to be a niddah only at the time that they see blood. Meaning, we don't assume that if she saw blood now, she must have been a niddah also for what? For what? For some amount of time beforehand. So finish the Rashi. So according to Beis Shammai, if a woman were to touch truma or taros, they would only be tamei if she were to touch them from the time that she saw blood. But anything that she touched before the time that she saw blood, ultimately, again, would not be problematic. Because we and we don't say like this. We don't say, well, listen, she's seeing blood now, but had she done a bedika, an internal examination, an hour ago, she also would have seen blood, bepashtos, and therefore let's back up her niddah status to an hour ago. We don't say that. We don't say that. Kol hanashim dayan shaitan. A woman is established as a niddah at the time she sees blood, and there is no retroactive application of her niddah status. Hillel says, mipkida lipkida filu liyamim harbe. So we'll say Hillel comes along. He says no. In fact, what we do is like this. Mepikida lepikida literally means from bedika to bedika. Look at Rashi. Mepikida lepikida. Badka atzma be'echa b'shabes u'matzasa Torah. U'liyom haravi badka matzasa tmeya. Chayshinan u'metama misafek kalat haroshinis aska b'hem b'shas bedikas echa b'shabes. The Shema im siluk yada lo savek kol sebeis rechem evidor. We'll say it's an incredible halacha. Beis Hillel says like this, to illustrate in the following way. Let's say she did a bedika on Sunday, and she was fine. Rabbi said this is another piece also, which is we'll get into the topic of bedikos. Why would one be doing a bedika on Sunday? We'll get into all of that. But for now, just you'll take the cases as they are. Woman does a bedika on a Sunday, and the bedika comes out totally clean. She does another bedika on Wednesday, and she sees blood. Beis Hillel says like this. Essentially, we have to back up her status until when? Till Sunday. Because the last time we know that she was a tahora was when she did the bedika on Sunday. Anything past that, and then the next piece of information we know is what? She saw blood on Wednesday. So Beis Hillel says we are going to treat her, essentially give her safek niddah status from between Sunday and Wednesday. Right? That's what it means. Mipekida lepekida. We back her up to the last bedika. And even if there is a lot of time in between, the two bedikos. So that's machlokes Shammai and Hillel, not even Beis Shammai and Hillel, but Shammai and Hillel. Shammai telling us, Kol Hanashim Dayan Shaitan, that at the end of the day, a woman only becomes a niddah when? At the time she actually sees blood. Beis Hillel saying, Mipekida lipekida. Ultimately, again, we back her. If she does a bedika now, her retroactive status will apply to the last bedika. Now, boss, I want to point something out, very important. Hillel declares her a niddah misafek, which means, let's say again between Sunday and Wednesday, she went ahead and she touched truma. So what's going to be the status of the truma? It's what we call tolin. So we'll say tolin ultimately means what? Tolin means that halacha l'maisa, we go ahead and we suspend it. So we'll see tolin means, we don't eat it, we don't burn it, we kind of leave it a little bit in this, what's the right word? In this suspension. Good. Fine. Chachamim. So we'll say third opinion. The Chachamim say, Lo ki divrei zeh v'lo ki divrei zeh. So we'll say the Chachamim say, Shammai is wrong and Hillel's wrong. Right? Everybody's wrong. So what do the Chachamim say? Ella, me'es la'es mema'etes al yad me'pekida le'pekida, u'mepekida le'pekida mema'etes al yad me'es la'es. The Chachamim say that, in fact, Rabbi say, what do? We go ahead and we use the lesser of the two. Either we back up her status for 24 hours or from the last bedika. So we'll say, listen to this. So the Chachamim in principle agree with Hillel in a certain way, namely, or I should say differently, the Chachamim disagree with Shammai. Shammai says, Kol Anashim Dayan Shaitan, that when there's going to become a Niddah, when she sees the blood. So the Chachamim say, that can't be. The blood was there. To ignore the fact that the blood was there is ignoring reality. So the blood was there. They disagree with Shammai because Shammai backs up her suffix Niddah status to when? To the last bedika. So meaning essentially, Hillel, I'm sorry, it's right to the last bedika, right? Chachamim say, I disagree with both of you. We agree that you have to back up the status a little bit, but not. But according to Hillel, you could be backing up that status as we've seen for days. That's a pretty big chumrah. So the Chachamim say, what we'll do is we'll back up the suffix status to the lesser of the two, either mipekida lepekida to the last bedika or 24 hours. Whichever is the shorter of the two. That's me'es la'es means 24 hours. Either the shorter of the amount of time since the last bedika or last 24 hours, that's how much we will back up her status to. Look at Rashi. Lo kidivrei zeh, shemach mir yoser midai, devadei kuli hayamim rabim, lo mukmila kosle beis harachem. So ultimately, again, so the Chacham will say, we don't hold like Hillel, because it can't be that the blood was contained inside of her for all of those days and didn't come out. V'lo kidivrei zeh, not like Shammai, who's too mekel. Right, they will say, Bella, you should underline those words because you don't hear that too often about Shammai, right? That Shammai is a great megal. So therefore, I will say this is the sheet of the Chachamim, the lesser of the two. So I will say three-way fundamental machlokes. A woman sees blood. At which point in time is she considered to be a niddah? Again, remember the ramifications over here that the Mishnah is discussing is not in the context of marital relations, but rather the context over here is in terms of her contact with certain sanctified food items that could become tamei as a result of contact with a niddah. So Shammai says, we don't back up anything, right? We assume that she's a niddah when? At the time that she sees blood. Beis Hillel, or I should say Hillel, mipekida lepekida, she is the suffix since the time of her last bedika. So everything she touched in between the last bedika and the present bedika, ultimately again is going to be subject to suffix tuma and chachamim, the shorter of me'es la'es and pekida lepekida, the shorter of the two times of either within the last 24 hours or the time since the last bedika. Good. Next halacha. So we'll say, so now we'll come to another interesting topic. Anyone who has a veses, so we'll say a veses, we're going to spend a lot of time on vestos as well, but for our purposes now, a veses ultimately means a regular cycle. Any woman who has a regular cycle, daya shaita. So we'll say, so now what the Mishnah seems to be saying is that the machlokes, the three machlokes over here, is only concerning a woman who is what we call a veses she'ino kavua, an irregular cycle. So with an irregular cycle, a woman might not know when the bleeding started, but if a woman has a regular cycle, everyone will agree daya shaita, that she's only considered to be a niddah at the time that she actually sees blood. If you take a look at Rashi says over ki isha sheish la veses kavua gimel pamim ubatka b'shas vesta. So what's the Rashi also here over says, what's a veses kavua? Any woman who has established a regularity in terms of bleeding 3 times. Again, we'll discuss there are different types of vestos that a woman could have. So we'll say furthermore again, and we'll discuss all of these cases in depth. A woman who before and after she has relations does bedigos. We'll discuss why someone would do this. Right? So this is before she has relations, after she has relations, she does a bedika. Harizu kipekida. This is considered to be a bona fide bedika. Umima etes al yad me'es la'is. Va'al yad mipekida lepekida. And aloch lemaisa, this type of bedika satisfies the Chachamim's criteria. Remember again, what was the position of the Chachamim? A woman finds blood, so when do we back up her status to? Right? The lesser of the two. Either within 24 hours, last 24 hours, or from the time of her last bedika. What the Mishnah is telling me is a bedika that she did before or after relations ultimately counts as a badika for these purposes. We'll discuss what the havamin is. Why would we think that a badika for these purposes would not be good? We'll see in the Gemara. So the Gemara says, Keitza daya shaita. So the Gemara says, what's the case ultimately again of daya shaita? If you look at Rashi for just a moment, Rashi says, V'leka l'meimer d'meikara hava hasam devadai oreach bizmano ba. So we'll say, so this is interesting. So the Gemara says, what's the case of daya shaita? Let's illustrate this case of a woman who we would say daya shaita. Now, both remember again, what's the case where everyone agrees daya shaita? What's the case? Veses kavua, right? If she has a regular cycle, everyone agrees daya shaita, right? There's no machlokes over there. So what's the case, for example? So the Gemara says, Keitza daya shaita, haise yosheves b'mita. If she was sitting on a mita, but mita doesn't just have to mean a bed. Mita can mean a cushion. She's sitting on something. Va'asuka b'taras, and she is involved in taras, whatever it is. She's kneading dough for challah or whatever. She's separating out trumas and maisos. Whatever she's doing, and what happens? Upirsha, she gets up. Virasa, and she sees blood. She sees blood. Now both say, we'll discuss a lot of these cases. Where is she seeing blood? How is she seeing blood? But for our purposes now, she sees blood. Varasa, he timeya. So we'll say from the moment that she sees blood. Now again, I just want to point out, there's so many related halachos over here, because there are times that a woman sees blood, but lav dafka that we attribute it to dam niddah. So we'll see all the different. But again, she gets up, she sees blood. Varasa timeya. He timeya. She is tameh. In other words, she's a niddah. Vehein tahoros. But ultimately, again, that which she was engaged with, i.e., the taharos that she was engaged in, are tahar. Our Rabbi will say, why are they tar? Why are they tar? Because remember again, I will say, this is the case, ultimately again, of a veses kavua, right? A woman who has a set cycle, and therefore again, halacha l'maisa, or I should say, or this would be an illustration ultimately of daya shaita in general. Daya shaita means she sees blood, her status changes as a result of seeing the blood. Her status changes now. The status is not backed up. So the taras that she was dealing with, just 2 minutes earlier, are absolutely fine, but she is timeya. He timeya vein taras. Afa b'isharon mitamel meis la'is. Einamona ella misha'a sherasa. So we'll say this is another very important idea. Even though we're saying now that according to everyone except Shammai, there is some idea ultimately again of backing up her status. This is a non-daya shaita case, right? Even though again we talk about backing up that according to Hillel and according to the Chachamim, there is some level of retroactivity applied to her niddah status. That retroactivity is only vis-a-vis taras. The retroactivity is not vis-a-vis the counting of her nidos. Remember again, so we said before, midda oraisa. So remember again, how long is woman a niddah? Midda oraisa? 7 days. 7 days. They both say, whether she's bleeding for 2 of them, 5 of them, or 7 of them, it doesn't make a difference, right? There's no yemei toar, there's no shivani, there's no nikim by biblical niddah. So halacha l'maisa, the Mishnah just pointed out over here, when we speak about backing up her status, that's only vis-a-vis taras. When it comes to actually counting her nidus in order to go to the mikvah, ultimately, again, that count begins when? From the moment that she sees blood. Good. So what we're going to be focusing now for the remainder of the daf ultimately is this incredible 3-way machlokes. So remember again, a woman is dealing with taras or was dealing with taras, she sees blood. Assuming for now that we're absolutely sure that it's dam niddah, it's menstrual blood. Okay, fine. So now the shaila is, what do we do about her status in the last 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days? What is there a level of retroactive application on her status? Shammai says, quick chazar, Shammai says, no, right? Daya shaita. We'll say daya shaita just means she's only a niddah right now, and that's it. There's no retroactive application to her status. Hillel says, mi pekida lepekida, essentially we apply suffix niddah status retroactively when? All the way back to when? To the time of her last pedika, which I will say again, whenever that was, which is a pretty dramatic shita, whenever that was. And Chachamim say, a little bit of a hybrid model, Chachamim say, the lesser of the time of either to the last Badika or 24 hours. Whatever is the lesser of those two, that's retroactive application of her status. Good. Says the Gemara, my time of the Shammai. What's Shammai's logic that he says, Daya Shaita? It's a good Shaila. So the Gemara says, Kasavar, Ha'emad Isha al Cheskasa, V'Isha Becheskas Tahora Umedes. So Shammai said very simple, it's the din of Chazaka. Din of Chazaka. Both say a woman doesn't have an active Chazaka of being a Niddah. A woman has a Chazaka of being a Tahora. So therefore, halacha l'maisa, again, until I know that she's bleeding, ultimately, again, her chazaka is that she's a tahora. I have no reason to assume that chazaka changed until when? Until when? Until it does. Until it does. Until she actively sees that her status has changed. Therefore, there's no reason to back up any level of her status. Hillel will say, Ki Amar Hamid Davar Cheskaso. Hillel says, when do we say that something remains on its chazaka? Heichad delesle reusa migufei. He will say, when do we say that something ultimately, again, retains its chazaka until it changes? That's only, I will say, when ultimately the item remains intact. However, aval isissa, in other words, heichad delesle reusa migufei means when there's something not physically, there's something, as long as there's something, let me say it in the positive. Hillel will say like this, I agree that normally we establish something on its chazaka. But when there's something in the object itself which fundamentally undermines the chazaka, then by definition you can't retain the chazaka. So he says like this: Aval isisa amadeis kevan demigufaka chazia lo aminan ukma achaz kasa. So Hillel will say, listen, at the end of the day, this blood obviously came from her body. We also know that it's possible that the moment that the blood becomes dislodged from the uterus is not the moment that it automatically exits the body. Meaning it could remain inside for a bit, which therefore by definition Hillel says is you can't ignore that reality, and therefore it's impossible to say that there was no blood before this moment that she saw it. So both say, so this the Gemara says is the fundamental machlokes in Hillel and Shammai. Shammai will say, chazaka, chazaka, chazaka. She has a cheskas tahora until I know that it's changed. When do I know that it's changed? When she sees blood. Up until that point, she's tahora, and that's her chazaka. Hillel will say, no, only time you could say hamid davar al cheskaso, but essentially here's what Hillel says. Hamid davar al cheskaso says like this: an item has a chazaka until acted upon. When it's acted upon and something changes that chazaka, then ultimately, again, we say the chazaka has changed now, but not before. But when the item is not acted upon, says Hillel, but the item itself changes, so then Hillel says you cannot hold ha'emid davar al cheskaso. When it's the item itself that's evolving, in this case, the item being the woman, right? When the woman herself it's her body that is changing, her body that is evolving, you cannot say ha'emid davar al cheskaso. Incredible. So Gemara says, really? We'll say this is a great case. Umay shlami mikvah. We'll say this is an incredible case. Umay shlami mikvah. 2 lines, second line down, Amud Beis. Why is it different than the case of mikvah? What's what happened in mikvah? Disnan mikvah shenindad v'nim sachaser. We'll say, listen to this case. Somebody decided to measure the mikvah. There's always a guy like this, right? Always a guy, right? Somebody decided, right? He wants to measure the mikvah. And it turns out that what? The mikvah is deficient, right? The mikvah requires 40 sa'ah of water. Somebody measures it. There's 39 sa'ah of water. And I will say now, what's the shaila? What's the shaila? Right? Like what? Here's what I know. I know that it's deficient now. The shaila is what about everybody who used it or items it was used for up until now. So listen to this. So mikvah a mikvah that was measured and it was found to be deficient. Kol tarus shenasu al gabav lemafreya bein birshos harabim bein birshos hayochid tmeos. Wow. So listen to this. So the Mishnah says as follows, right? That halacha l'maisa, if you have a mikvah that was found to be deficient, and now whether the mikvah is in Rosh Hashanah or Rosh Hashanah, I will say the reason ultimately we're making this distinction, although we're not getting into this now, is in general we say that Safek Tuma Birshus Hayochid is Tameh and Safek Tuma Birshus Harabim is Tahar. That's learned out from Sota. It's not relevant to our. I mean, of course, it's relevant. It's not necessary for our purposes right now. So we're going to leave it on the side. I will say what's relevant for our purposes is what does the Mishnah say? anyone or anything that used that mikvah, retroactively, ultimately again, is Tameh. Right? Ultimately again, Tameos. So ultimately again, everything is going to be Tameh. We'll say incredible. So essentially what the halacha says is like this: since we don't know when the mikvah became deficient, therefore what? We'll always treat it as deficient. Right? Meaning everything is going to have to be deficient. So Rabbi Shmuel says this Mishnah poses a problem l'shamai and for Hillel. L'shamai kashi l'mafreya. So Rabbi, according to Shammai, this is problematic. Why? Because if Shammai was commenting on this Mishnah, you would expect him to say what? Die in shaitan. When is the mikvah puzzle? When is it puzzle? Now, right now it's puzzle. But the guy who used it 2 minutes ago, it was absolutely okay. So it's a shaila on Shammai, and even for Hillel, it's a kasha. We'll say, why is it a Hillel? Why is it a shaila for Hillel? The Hillel kasha vadai. Di'ilu me'es le'es shabenida tolin lo ochlin v'lo surfin v'ilu hacha t'meya vadai. We'll say it's shaila and Hillel also, because remember, even Hillel. What did Hillel say in the Mishnah? Hillel said in the Mishnah that we're going to back up her Niddah status until when? The last Badika. But even so, what do we do with everything in that window between the present Badika or between the present moment and the last Badika? Safek. So we'll say Safek means, look, if it's Taurus, I can't eat it, I can't do anything with it, I'm not going to burn it. Tolan, Safek. When you look at this Mishnah over here, the Mishnah says what? What's the status of the mikvah and everything that was ever immersed in it? Vadai Tameh. So we'll say, so this Mishnah is problematic both according to, we'll say, first I have to admit, it's so nice to get back into Gemara, right? I'm just saying, we say the Beis Hamikdash sugyas were incredible, were fantastic, but there it was much more reading. We're getting back into Gemara. It's great. So we'll say, so what do I do with this Mishnah? Remember, this is a Mishnah in Mikvos. What do I do with the Mishnah? To which the Gemara says, no. Hasam mishum di'ikalamema ha'emit tamad al cheskaso ve'emalo tavo. I'll tell you, the mikvah case is different, right, Rabbi say? Because every person who comes to the mikvah, let's just deal with people right now. Every person who comes to the mikvah is tameh. So Rabbi say you go to the mikvah in order to change your status. So when there's a suffix in the mikvah, essentially what we do is what? We default back to the chazaka we know. What's the chazaka I know? Right? That it's tameh. That's tameh. Right? So therefore, again, that's what's happening over here. I don't know what the status of the mikveh is. The truth is, I don't know when the mikveh changed. All I know is that now it's not good. Maybe it's not good as of 5 minutes ago. Maybe it's not good as of 5 years ago. I don't know. So therefore, anyone who ever used this mikveh will default back to their last known chazaka. Their last known chazaka is one of tumah. Adraba. The Gemara says I can make just the opposite argument. Hamid mikvah al cheskaso ve'emalo chaser. I could say the mikvah also had, right? The mikvah had 27 hechsherim, right? So, and again, everybody and their mother came and blessed this mikvah, right? So I'll say the mikvah also had a cheskas kashrus, right? Meaning, we'll say one thing I know for sure is what? The mikvah was kosher, right? We're not talking about now. What we're doing over here is I know the mikvah was kosher at some point in time. So why don't I say the mikvah has a cheskas kashrus? When did the chazaka change? Now, right now. I found it deficient now. The chazaka changes now. So again, obviously anybody who would use the mikvah from this moment forward is not going to become tahar, but anyone who used it up until now is going to be totally fine. The Gemara says, you can't say that. Hari chaser lefanecha. You can't say that it has a chazaka of not being chaser, because why? It's chaser now. It's chaser now. Which the Gemara says, you can't say that. Hachenami haridam lefanecha. I don't understand. So, but again, you could say the same logic by the woman. So both say the Gemara is suggesting you can't say it just became chaser. Why? Because the Gemara suggests that's not the mitzias, right? The mitzias is not that it just became chaser. The Gemara says, really? But Shammai, you use that svara by Niddah, right? By Niddah, you said ultimately die a shaita, even though there's blood here right now. You didn't have a problem saying the blood just appeared now, and you didn't feel the need to back up the status. To which the Gemara says, "Hachenami hari dam lefanecha, hashtu dechazoi." Shammai will say, no. Even though there's blood here right now, it just came out now, right? There's no reason there's no reason for us to assume that blood was lingering inside of her for some extended amount of time. Rather, if we see it now, we assume that that ultimately, again, it was dislodged from the uterus now. Hachanami, hashto dechaser. So I don't understand. Why can't we say something by the mikvah? Just say, again, there's a very simple way. The mikvah just sprung a leak. The last guy who used the mikvah, what do they call it? A cannonball, right? Did a cannonball into the mikvah, right? They'll say whatever it is. You could explain whatever you want to explain. But lemaisa, again, what the Gemara is saying is like this. If it works by Niddah, it's got to work by mikvah. So if you could tell me that Niddah could experience an instantaneous change that was not present 2 minutes ago, then I don't understand why by mikvah you can't go ahead and explain that as well. To which the Gemara says, Hachi hashta hasam ika lemeimar chaser va'asa. Hacha mi ika lemeimar chazoi va'asa. So we'll see, this is actually very interesting. By the case of a mikvah, it is possible to say, and maybe even probable to say, that there was some type of gradual leak. Look at Rashi for just a moment. So the Gemara says, chasar va'asa chaser va'asa v'Israel lechazaka mikamei hachi tuva v'lo yadin al me'imas hilchach reyat femi isha. So you're both saying the nature of the mikvah the Gemara wants to suggest is that the leak, or when I say leak, the diminution of the water was gradual. Right? It was gradual. Lav dafka that it happened at once. That just seems to be a greater mitzias. Lemaisa, again, you can't really say that by Niddah. The Gemara says, look at Rashi, Hachami ika lemeimar hilchach ad shas mitzias dam lo Israel chazaka v'hach tishtachach hashta ika lemeimar dahashtu dechazoi. So Shammai will say, by mikvah, ultimately, again, it's possible that the loss of the water was gradual. So because of that, I actually don't know when the mikvah became deficient. Because I don't know when the mikvah became deficient, both said there's only one option, which is what? To declare everything that ever used that mikvah to be tameh. In the case of an isha, in the case of a woman, says Shammai, we don't assume that the exiting of blood from the body is gradual. It just happens. So because of that, Shammai will say, by Niddah I'll say daya shaita, but I don't have a problem with the Mishnah in Niddah that says essentially we have to treat this mikvah as puzzle forever, because ultimately, again, the water may have been diminishing all of this time and just no one ever took note. To which the Gemara says, "My kushya, dilma hagas chazise." So I will say, to essentially which the Gemara answers, even by Niddah, you could have a situation of a gradual blood flow. Look at Rashi, hagas, lashon rabia, shadam holech v'gadol v'domelo. So we'll say, the Gemara essentially answers, we're going to spend more time on this, but even by Niddah, you could have a situation of a buildup, right? Of a buildup where ultimately, again, the blood is there. And I remember, as I mentioned before, once blood exits the uterus, even if it remains inside of the woman's body, that is still called dam niddah. And technically speaking, in that moment when it dislodges from the uterus, technically speaking, she is a niddah. On a technical level. Again, we're going to get into all of this. So we'll say, so the Gemara answers, you can have a case, so you see that the case of Niddah can be like the case of Niddah. The case of Niddah can be like the case of mikvah. That both are gradual. Yet what? Shammai, you're saying by Niddah, daya shaita. Yet the Mishnah by mikvah is saying what? Everything since the beginning of time with that mikvah is going to be tameh. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Hasam ika tarti l'reusa, hacha ika chada l'reusa. I will say, here's the difference. In the case of mikvah, there's what we call tarti l'reusa. There's two problems. I will say, what are the two problems? Number one problem, mikvah is deficient. Number two, the person who went into the mikvah was what? Was tameh. So Rabbi says, so essentially, when it comes to mikvah, you have two problems. Number one is the mikvah no longer has a cheskas kashrus, and the person who went into the mikvah has a cheskas tumah. So Rabbi says, when you put both of those things together, it's hard to be mitaher a person under those circumstances. Tartarusa, look at Rashi just a moment. Tartarusa, he mitameh cheskas tumah. So number one, the person who used the mikvah was tameh. Ubecheskas tara de mikvah Ikareyasa. And we're saying the cheskas tar of the mikvah itself is problem. There's no cheskas tar in the mikvah. So the person has a cheskas tuma. The mikvah no longer has a cheskas kashrus. You put that together, and it's hard to legitimately say that anyone who used this mikvah was kosher. On the flip side, hacha ika chad l'reyosa. But on the other hand, when it comes to the case of niddah, there's only chad l'reyosa. There's only one quote unquote problem. What's the one problem? What's the one problem? The appearance of blood right now. So Shammai will say, when there's only one issue, I could say daya shaita. I could say the chazaka only changes right now. When there's two problems, right, the deficiency in the mikvah, remember again, I will say, essentially, it's the mikvah lacks a cheskas kashrus, and the individual who used the mikvah has what? A cheskas tumah. You put that together, and it's a hard sell to say that anyone should be able to rely on that mikvah. Pretty incredible. Umash nami chavis. We'll say another case. Why is this different than the case of the chavis? Listen to this. This is really fascinating. So we'll say, haya disnan. Haya bodek es hachavis. Lihios mafrish ala. So let's listen to this. A person, now this is actually very interesting. We'll say in this case over here, I like wine. Right? I see a lot of, right? I like wine. So we'll say, what do I have to do? Every time I open up a new barrel, because who opens up just bottles? Right? Every time I open up a new barrel, so we'll say, so the issue is, I have to be mafresh shumas and maestros. But, again, I'm in the middle of the Suda, it's Shabbos, it's Yantav, I can't do shumas. So I have a great idea. I have a chumas maestros barrel. So I set aside an entire barrel of wine, and what I do is every time I open up another barrel of wine, I designate some of the wine in my truma barrel to be truma for the wine that I'm opening. Totally permitted. Again, assuming that there's proximity, it's there, it's minamukah, fine. So I'll say, so now watch this. Now, what do you have to be, if you're going to do this, what do you have to be careful about? You have to make sure that the wine in your truma barrel hasn't turned. You have to be very careful about that. So we'll say, so watch this. By the way, there's no question that when Mashiach comes, right, and basically when we're all seeking all of these things, there's going to be a market for this, right? Someone to maintain your truma barrels, right? Mamish, think of. I want a commission. So the Gemara says like this. So the Gemara says, "Hayabodek es hachavis." So we'll see. Here we go. I'm checking my truma barrel. Lios mafresh ala truma. So we'll say. So again, I've designated one full barrel as truma. So now what's happened? So we'll say, now you see what's happened over here. I go to check on the truma barrel, and what's happened? It turned. So we'll say, what's going to be? So remember, I've been drinking wine like no one's business. So we'll say, here's the problem. I've been relying on that barrel, right, for a while. So we'll say, now what's the shaila? When did it turn? So we'll say, remember again. Now, I just want to point out, so the stakes here are a bit less than the previous cases, because again, really, my greatest shaila is, do I have to separate out truma again? Which again, is a rectifiable situation, but that's my shaila. I've been drinking wine for the last whatever amount of time, so when did my truma barrel turn? So watch this. So the Gemara says, V'achar kach nimtza chometz kol gimel yomim. So the girsa here changes to whether it's Rishonim or not. But kol gimel yomim vadai mikan ve'elach safek. So we'll say, so there's a fundamental machlokas as to what exactly this means. Take a look at Rashi. Kol gimel yomim vadai. Rashi says plukta Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yoshua. So we'll say there's a machlokas in the Gemara as to what exactly 3 days of what. So listen to this. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan Omer, Kol Gimel Yomim la'achar bedika harishona shematza becheskasa vada yayin. V'emar besoch Gimel Yomim harei truma al ilu asmuchin la kulam mitukanos mikan ve'ilach safek utrumahi v'yachsar v'yichos. So Rabbi Yochanan says that essentially from 3 days from the time of your last bedika, we assume the wine has not turned, right? It takes wine a little bit of time to turn. So let's say I checked it on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we assume that barrel is good. Anything after that, we assume the barrel turns, and therefore you're going to have to go ahead and re-separate out truma from a new batch of wine. Rabbi Shmuel Levi says, Kol gimel yomim kol dem bedika achrona shedin tzeis chometz v'adi chometz. Rabbi Yeshua says, no. It's essentially, if you checked it on a Friday, 3 days beforehand, we assume it already turned. So essentially, Rabbi Yeshua will say that from the time you check, from the time that you found it, we assume that what? That it was vinegar already 3 days before. So anything you did in the last 3 days. So we'll say, so they both agree on 3 days. So the machlokes of 3 days as of when? Is it 3 days from the last badika, we assume it was good, or 3 days from before this present badika, we assume that it was bad? Either way, says the Gemara, Kasha l'shamai. So we'll say either way, we'll say this poses a question to Shammai, because what does Shammai hold? What does Shammai hold? Shammai holds daya shaita. Let's remember again, Shammai's shita always is that at the end of the day, chazaka only changes when? Now. Right? Chazaka changes now. So we'll say here you see from the wine, we'll say either way, it's not daya shaita. So what does Shammai do with this? So you're going to see much of the same conversation now by wine that we had by mikvah. So we'll say it's very simple. Rabbi say the untithed wine has a cheskas what? Cheskas tevel. Tevel means untithed produce. So essentially we'll say in a case of suffix, what do I do with my wine? Establish it on its last known chazaka. That's what you always do in a case of safek. What's the last known chazaka of my wine? Not of my truma barrel, of my consumption wine. Right? What's the last known chazaka? Tevel. So therefore, I will say I don't know when my truma barrel turned. So therefore, just reestablish my consumption wine on its last known chazaka, which is tevel. Ve'emer lo niskon. Adrabah. Once I can say just the opposite. Ha'emid yain al cheskaso ve'ema lo hichmitz. I will say the wine, meaning my truma barrel, also had a chazaka. What's the chazaka of my truma barrel? What's the chazaka? It was good. So why don't I say that my truma barrel has its cheskas wine until when? Until I know now I taste it and I smell it and I know now that it's vinegar. To which the Gemara says, Hare hichmitz lefanacha. You can't say that because look, the wine is vinegar now. And I must say we assume that wine does not become vinegar instantaneously. Right? So because it does not become vinegar instantaneously, we have to back up this change for some amount of time, to which the Gemara says, Hachanami hare dam lefanecha. Shammai, why don't you say the same thing? There's blood in front of you now also, the woman bled. So why don't we say also that change doesn't occur instantaneously, right? And back it up some amount of time. Hashtu de chazoi. No, because Shammai will say by blood, we do assume it could be instantaneous. That if she sees it now, it's because she's bleeding now. But lav dafka, that we have to back up that status any amount. Hasam nami hashtahu dehichmitz. So why don't we say, I don't understand. So why don't we say that the barrel turned into vinegar just now also? I will say, remember, there must be in wine also that moment where it turns, right? Because again, wine is drinkable. Wine is drinkable under certain circumstances, even if it's not a premium quality wine. So there is that moment when it turns, to which the Gemara says, Hashtanu dechmitz, hachi hashta, hasam ikalamemar hechmitz va'asa, hechmitz va'asa. To which the Gemara says, that's not the derech of wine turning. Wine turns over time. So says, so there is this hechmitz va'asa. There is this graduality. I don't know if that's a word, right? But there is this graduality that ultimately exists. Hacha mi'ika l'meimar chazai va'asa. So we'll say, but when it comes to niddah, there is this ability to say that what? That halacha l'maisa, ultimately we don't say there's any kind of graduality associated with it. She bleeds. And when she bleeds, ultimately, again, she becomes a niddah. Umay kusha. So we'll say, same thing as we said before, that's not necessarily true. Dilma hagas chazise. Rabbi say, remember again, when it comes to niddah, there's also the possibility of graduality. Hagas chazise means that Rabbi say sometimes there could be internal blood buildup, where l'maisa again the blood is not exiting the body, but it is building up inside of the body. So there is that graduality that exists by niddah in the same way that it exists by dam, by yayin. Yet Rabbi say, yet Shammai is saying that by niddah daya shaita. Yet what? When it comes to the barrel, he is agreeing with some level of retroactivity. To which the Gemara says, I'll tell you, Hasam ika tarti l'reusa, hacha ika chada l'reusa. Well, see, here's the fundamental difference. In the case of the barrel, ultimately, both say, and same as like we gave by mikvah. In the case of the barrel, there are two problems. Right? What are the two problems in the case of the barrel? Problem number one, let's go through this. Problem number one, the barrel. Right? Problem number one is that my truma barrel is now vinegar. Right? That's a fact. Problem number two is my produce was tevel. So we'll say, so the same thing is, what do we say by the mikvah, right? What's wrong with the mikvah, right? The mikvah problem we'll say was what? Number one, I have a deficient mikvah, and number two, the person who went to the mikvah had what? A cheskas tumah. You put those two things together, and you have to back up the problematic status. The Gemara suggests the same thing over here by the barrel of wine. Right now, I have a barrel that turned into vinegar. That's problem number one, and I know for sure that what? My wine was tevel. You put those two things together, and ultimately you have to back up the problematic status for some amount of time. By the case of Niddah, however, when it comes to the case of Niddah, we only really have one problem, right? I only have one problem. What's my one problem? Remember again, the one quote-unquote problem is that she's seeing dam now, but there's no other issue. So essentially what you begin to see is something really, really exceptionally fascinating. Shammai will say, I hold of daya shaita, essentially, when there's only one issue at hand. There's only one change to the chazaka. The moment, so she bleeds, she had a cheskas tara beforehand, now she sees blood, we assume her chazaka changed when according to Shammai? According to Shammai, when? Right now. When you have more than one problem bombarding the chazaka, then at the end of the day, we're going to have to back up the problematic status some degree. How much? Okay, is subject to each different case. So in these cases of mikvah, where when you find a mikvah deficient, we have two problems, right? We have a deficient mikvah that doesn't have a cheskas kashrus, and an individual who had a cheskas tumah. In the case of the barrel, you have a barrel that now turned to vinegar, plus food that had what? A cheskas tevel. Even Shammai will agree that at the end of the day, you have to back up the status a little bit. So we'll say, so Barami Chavis HaMikvah. So we'll say, so now the Gemara is going to do something incredible. I think we're going to stop over here. But the Gemara now is going to contrast the two cases of Chavis, the case of the barrel of wine and the case of the mikvah. We'll pick up and answer with this Gemara tomorrow. Both I'll just tell you two quick things. First of all, I'll record the Parsha thought after the Shir. But both I just want to point out something incredible, because you know the power of learning Gemara is Gemara doesn't just teach us halacha, but it teaches us also about hashkafas achayim. So we'll say, what are they really arguing about in the Mishnah? What are they really arguing about? We'll say they're arguing about the dynamic of change. About the dynamic of change, right? How does change occur, right? So Shammai says that what? In Shammai's worldview, how could change occur? Instantaneous change. Instantaneous change. Rav Kook calls this tshuva pitomis. Tshuva pitomis. Instantaneous change is possible. That a person could literally say, right now I'm someone different. Right now I'm someone different. I was someone else a minute ago, a second ago. But again, daya shaita. Daya shaita. I will say sometimes in life you slam on the brakes and you say daya shaita. Enough. Right now, everything changes. Hillel and the Chachamim, what's their position on change? Gradual. No, change does not happen instantaneously. And even if change happens instantaneously, generally what? It doesn't stick. Real change requires a gradual metamorphosis of chazaka. And I both say that takes time. What's the machlokes? Hillel and the Chachamim, what's the machlokes? Hillel says it could take a long time. Mipikida lepikida, right? Go back to the last bedika. The last bedika was 5 days ago. Change takes time. The Chachamim will say it takes time, but not as much time. So I'll say, isn't it incredible? See, we think that they're just arguing in Hilchos Niddah, but it turns out that they're arguing in life. So everyone's saying, who's correct? So I should tell you that in Tshuva, Rav Kook in Oros HaTshuva, in the second, at the beginning of in Oros HaTshuva, in the first or second chapter, maybe third chapter, so he talks about this. He talks about Tshuva Pitomis and Tshuva Hadargis. Right? There is instantaneous Tshuva and gradual Tshuva. And Rav Kook says they're both right. Sometimes in life a person summons up the courage to be a daya shaita Jew and literally go ahead and just slam on the brakes and say, you know what, this is it. From this moment forward, everything is different. But most times in life, ultimately, Rav Kook says, one requires a bit more of a gradual change. He happens to hold, Rav Kook, this is just an aside, that tshuva, he says, people sometimes ask, which is higher? Rav Kook says, I think tshuva pitomis is higher. the ability to summon up the inner courage, to slam on the brakes of life, and to effect fundamental, profound, cathartic, metamorphic, instantaneous change, says Rav Kook, is the highest level of human accomplishment. The daya shaita, the tshuva pitomis. But whichever one is higher, we clearly see from the Mishnah that both are legitimate models, not just in Hilchos Niddah, but in change as well.